Hi friends, hope you are doing well. I'm Dr. Ganguly. Welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to discuss 5 habits of PhD students which can delay their progress towards their PhD degree. So these are essentially bad habits which you can try to get rid of. So I have often seen that PhD students who have these kind of habits, they have a lot of problems in their college during the time they spent at the university and so on. So let's begin. Now the number one is taking criticism badly. And very often if you were a bachelor's degree student, you were a student in high school, you were actually shielded from direct criticism by a supervisor. So essentially most of the time, even if you did not get good marks in school, you did not get a good CGPA, you would simply see the results in your examination papers, in the grades which are given out at the end of the semester, and it would not be a direct interaction with your professor. But what happens in the PhD is that you have to routinely meet with your PhD supervisor, and very often the feedback you are going to get from this person is going to be negative feedback, because whatever you do, he is going to put on his black hat or critical thinking, and he's going to critique your work, whether it's your writing, whether it's your research, or whether it is your way of presentation or functioning in general in your life. So this is something which shocks a lot of PhD students when they make this transition from a course student to a research student. Now, not only your PhD supervisor is going to criticize you, you are also going to be criticized in paper reviews, in comprehensive exams, in your thesis defense, in any conference you go to, in any seminar to go to, and so on. So one of the things you need to figure out is how to take criticism positively. So whenever something hurts you very deeply, one of the reasons is that there is some level of truth in that, and so that typically has a negative impact on you. So you need to take this truth out from whatever is told to you and make amends as necessary. So if your supervisor is telling you that your English writing is very bad, it's not personal. He's simply saying something which will improve your writing in the future and make you a better researcher. Similarly, if he says that you do not write papers well, you write papers randomly, your paragraph structures are not good, and so on, then again he's telling you something which needs to be improved to become a better researcher. So it's very important to take criticism as far as positively as possible so that you can make the required changes in your work. Now the second bad habit which students have is responding too fast, and this I have seen in the case of even some researchers who have been doing research for a long time, that when they get a review back from a journal, they immediately send out a note to the editor as to what was wrong with the review, why the reviewer has not properly read the paper, and so on. So what happens is that when you receive a negative feedback and if you respond to it immediately, you are not giving yourself time to actually process that information. Your reaction is at a very basic emotional level. So one of the things you need to do is to put a gap between the stimulus and the response. So whenever you hear something back from somebody, it may be a letter from the referee, it may be some suggestions which have been made by your supervisor, and so on. Take some time before you do anything. So maybe take a day or two off or do some other work, and then come back and address the reviewer's comment. So you should not immediately respond to any such things. Now I do know of a student who used to respond at midnight and so on to any harsh comments he got, and very often he used to make various personal remarks against people, and that actually led to very negative things happening to his research career. Now the third problem which students have is that they have no life outside their work, and this often happens because the PhD student is often a stoic personality, and after some time this guy just spends time in his department, in his apartment, in his dorm room, in his department, and so on. So spending a lot of time in the lab is good, but one of the problems is that you do not get perspective, you tend to get bored, and your creativity can come down, and essentially to some extent you are going through the same life again and again, and also you are repeating the same thoughts in your mind. So if you have seen the movie Total Recall, it's something like that. Essentially people are stuck in something like a time loop and they are going through these same motions repeatedly. So you need to add some variety to your life, have some things which you do beyond your work. It could be going to the gym, it could be taking part in some music festivals, it could be maybe taking part in some sports activity and so on. Try to make these physical because they are going to take things off your mind. So again, this is something very important because it will help you become a more creative person, because any boredom which you have in your actual life gets ultimately reflected in your research, in your writing, and the way you make presentations and so on. So try not to become a boring person. Now the fourth point is procrastination, and this is actually the reverse of responding too fast. And what happens is that sometimes people procrastinate way too much. So essentially the first year goes by, the second year goes by, and the students have not made a proposal as far as their PhD concerned. They do not have any good idea about what to do and so on. And many of the time, if you are stuck with a monk type of supervisor, this thing may go on and your PhD may get postponed very significantly. So try not to procrastinate just because the PhD is a self-paced problem. Different people take different amount of time to finish the degree. Does not mean that you just take as much time as possible. Actually, your objective should be to finish your degree as fast as possible and get into the job market and start making some decent money. So keep this thing in mind, that procrastination often stems from perfection, and again what may have happened is the gap between stimulus and action has now become too long, and also the fact that time is linear and therefore the time is flying by and it may not come back to you. So one of the ways to avoid procrastination is to make some plan to write conference papers, because they force you to actually write a paper given there is a deadline. Also try to write a journal paper in the first year or the first 2 years of your thesis or your PhD, because if you have some plans, then you are going to do some work. Now if you do not have any plans, it's very unlikely that you are going to accomplish much, because there is a saying that if you do not know where you are going, all roads will lead you there. Now the fifth problem, which is quite pervasive, is blaming the PhD supervisor. And of course very few people have very cordial relations with their PhD supervisor, because the job of the PhD supervisor is to keep giving you negative feedback about all the things you have done in terms of research, in terms of writing, even in terms of how you go about conducting your life and so on. And one of the things is that the PhD supervisor are not really trained to guide students. They were PhD students and then they suddenly got a job and now they are PhD supervisors. So do keep in mind that it's your responsibility to communicate well with your PhD supervisor. So the communication problems are often at the center of the bad relationships which people develop with their PhD supervisor. You may need to make sure that they understand your point of view. If you are not making progress on certain problem, you need to inform your PhD supervisor why you are not making progress, what are the technical problems which you are facing. If you are facing any personal problems in your life, you should also report these to your PhD supervisor, because it's important for them to know what are the different problems you are facing. These may be even family problems, these may be health problems, these may be financial problems. This is certainly going to bring out some aspects of the humanity in the PhD supervisor, because in most cases there is a human fact in some of them. Now do keep in mind that when you are a PhD student, your supervisor is not going to spoon feed you, not going to give you baby food like you were given when you were a bachelor's degree student or a master's degree student. Here you are an independent researcher, so at most you are going to get tough love in terms of guidance. So this is something you need to keep in mind. So do not blame the PhD supervisor, be a stoic personality and take the blame yourself if you have not done things very well. So these were some of the points I had for you about some habits which you need to shed if you want to rapidly make progress toward your PhD and to graduate out of the university you are currently in. I hope you benefit from this video. I will see you in a video sometime soon. See you then.